Hello, hello, good morning, Steeler Nation, and welcome to our SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with my co-host, Hunter Homistek. Time to update your resume there, co-host. How you doing?
It sounds good, man. I like it. Before though, I gotta say I liked Favorite Sports Writer too when that was my intro. Like that one just built my ego up to the max. So I like that one. But co-host sounds really good too, man. Happy to be here. Happy to talk Steelers, of course. Football is here tonight, dude.
Yes! We have games tonight, guys. So, we got Kansas City against Houston, and I'm excited as hell for the return of the NFL, and it's officially happened. I mean, we were very skeptical moving up through the COVID stuff. Ed Bouchette back a couple months ago didn't think it would happen at all. It's happening, Ed. Sorry, but we're making it happen, and it's happening tonight. So I'm psyched to watch some real official football. Steelers are playing Monday night, and nothing could make me happier than the return of Steeler football in the NFL in general.
Oh, man, I'm right with you. It's been ridiculous. Like, the more I just think about football, I catch myself, like, watching YouTube highlights all the time and stuff now, like, just getting back in the football mood. It's an exciting time. And even though the weather's starting to chill down a little bit, like, it's starting to feel football-y out there.
Yep.
It's the best, man. It's the best.
Nice. And, guys, we have a sponsor now. I mentioned there at the top of the show, Total Sports Enterprises is now our sponsor. And if I can jump on this correctly, that's not the right one. So I got to fix my page here. So as soon as I got my page fixed, there we go. I got the page now. It's all the switching stuff. You think I get good at this after a while. I was trying to work out all the bugs in the off season. But right here we have a picture, autograph pictures, 8x10 photos, $49 for the first 10 people to jump on Total Sports Enterprises. That's at Total Sports ENT on Twitter. And it's Joe Hayden autographs. They're $49 for the first 10 people. So people here on Twitter, people here on Facebook, you got the first chance to do it. Good luck. I hope you guys get it because that's a great deal. And every week moving forward, we're going to have a free giveaway chance on their Twitter page. You can follow us too on the Steeler Nation podcast @_SN podcast. We retweet that. So if you share that and you follow us, you follow Total Sports Enterprises, then you are automatically entered to win free autograph swag. And that is a cool partnership. The new contests happen every Monday. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. They give it away on Wednesday. So real clean transition with us with the podcast. We're happy for them to be a partner. And, thank you very much to Total Sports Enterprises for sharing all of that you do to help our podcast and help all of Steeler Nation, because it's just an awesome, awesome thing that we can give to our fans and give to all of Steeler Nation.
For sure. Those guys are awesome, man. Like, I've been following them, seeing them pop up for a long time. So partnering with them is super cool. You guys are, obviously if you're watching this, you're a Steelers fan. That's a must follow account. Absolutely. Always giving stuff and good stuff. Yes. And they're always like topical stuff too. Like right after the draft, they had a Highsmith jersey, a Claypool jersey, that kind of stuff. Like They're always on top of what's trending with Steelers Nation as well. So just go follow them.
Yeah. And Google them too, because yesterday for Ryan Shazier retiring, everything that's Ryan Shazier on their site was 50% off. I checked today, and it was still had the 50% off number on there. So jump over, check out, and see if you can purchase the Ryan Shazier stuff. They got jerseys, they've got helmets, they got mini helmets, they've got autographs, signed 8x10 photos. So whatever you like, check it out. It's a great way to have a piece of Shazier in your life and to serve for inspiration for Steeler Nation, though he has retired. And let's talk a second, I guess, about Ryan Shazier just coming out yesterday and retiring.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Just to talk about the 50% off real quick, that's crazy because you kind of, as a Steelers fan, you want a Shazier jersey more now than usual. Like usually when a jersey goes on sale, it's because they traded the guy or cut the guy or whatever. He's not a Steeler. But now Shazier's a Steeler for life, as Colbert said, and made everybody choke up on that call when he had that line. You can retire from football, but you can't retire from being a Pittsburgh Steeler. I mean, that's a beautiful line right there, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, it's hard to even talk about Shazier at this point. What can you say that hasn't been said about how amazing this guy is from his teammates, from his coaches, from the GM, from the owners? I mean, everybody who has come into contact with Ryan Shazier says the same thing. It's an amazing story of perseverance. As good as he was as a player, he has the chance to be even greater now after football as an inspiration and as a story in that way, just moving forward. So I had to tweet something to that effect, because he said when he realized he couldn't be Superman anymore on the field, it was hard for him to come to grips with that. And for me, he's more of a Superman now with everything that he's done than if he was a Hall of Fame player. Like, what he's doing now is so much bigger than football.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Steeler for life, that's the kind of guy you want to be a Steeler for life. These highlights are ridiculous.
I know.
I was watching some.
We're showing the highlights here on the Facebook page. So if you're able to jump on the Steeler Nation Facebook page and watch the highlights as we're talking, you can do that. But we just got some beautiful, beautiful highlights of Shazier making play after play, and he was just such a, he started as a rookie, he picked it up quickly, and started making splash plays just about instantly. So it's just awesome to remember him, and just jump on YouTube and check it out if you got some time too. Just to remember the type of player that he was, because he really made a ton of plays for us.
I think one of the things that hurts the most in retrospect is that he was still clearly getting better. Like, that's going to be the great unknown, is that we'll never know how great he could have been as a player. We know how great he was, which was already pretty damn good, but we don't know exactly how good he was going to be. So that's what adds a little extra sting to the equation. And just him, and he's grappling with that fact as well. So his journey and dealing with that and moving past that has just been incredible, physically and mentally. It's one of the best stories in sports, and I'm sure it's going to make a book or a movie or something one day, and it's just going to take everything to the next level.
Yeah, so best luck with Ryan Shazier, as Emperor Chaz. Chuck Noll used to say, best of luck to you as you get along with your life's work. So now it's time for him to start his life's work. He's a lifetime Steeler. And we will show one other lifetime Steeler right here. And that is Cameron Hayward. Just inked a new deal. I don't know how the hell the Steelers figured out a way to make it fit underneath the salary cap, which we are in negative for next year. But I'm assuming they are geniuses. I will look at the numbers and probably do an article on it. But, just amazing to have a guy like Hayward, who's been on the team, seems like forever, defensive captain. He is the vocal leader, one of the vocal leaders on the team. And now he gets to continue and end his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler.
It's perfection, man. It's exactly what you want to see. I can't picture Cam Hayward in a different jersey. Like, when that was a possibility, I just couldn't do it. I refused to do it. For me, it never felt like he was going to leave. Like, I don't know why. There was just a part of me that always thought, like, they're going to make it happen no matter what it takes, really. And he for sure got a ton of money that is going to create some challenges for them moving forward, and re-signing some of the guys they might need to re-sign, TJ Watt chiefly among them. But they're going to make it work. Like you said, they are geniuses at this. This is what they do for a living. They've done it time and time again. It's not like they signed Hayward and are like, oh crap, we got to sign TJ. Like, this is very planned. They're very aware of what they're doing, and it's going to be fine ultimately. But what I loved more about this than anything, Cam Hayward, the player, again, we know how great he is. We know what his leadership means. I remember so many times last year after a loss, if you went and talked to Cam Hayward in the locker room after a loss, he was the ultimate professional in handling tough questions. He answer everything, answer it fully, never give you attitude, no matter. And there were times you could see, you'd ask him a question, he'd sit there for a second, compose himself, because after a tough loss, you want to just flip out and you want to be rude or mean, or he's still fired up. Like, you could tell he left some stuff out on the field, wasn't quite decompressed, but he always handled it, was just the ultimate professional in that way with media. So super appreciative for that. But it's just another statement by one of the greatest organizations, if not the greatest organization in football. There's a couple organizations that can make that claim, but it seems like the Steelers are the ones that continuously do stuff like this and lock their guys down for life and have their guys. Like, when he is a Pittsburgh Steeler, and only Steelers fans and people who follow the team will truly understand what that means. But these are the kind of moves that make the Steelers such a great organization. So to see them continually do that, it's just another mark for one of the greatest franchises on earth.
Well said. And I will leave it at that. because I couldn't say it any better, Hunter. That's why I love having you on the show, man. And so moving on, we're going to start talking about the rosters finalized. Obviously, we didn't have a chance to talk about it yet because the last podcast was on Thursday, finalized the roster on Saturday, and then adjusted the heck out of it. But at least for the points that I wanted to cover was we had 2 surprise returns to the roster, which is Sean Davis and Josh Dobbs coming back to the team. And for me personally, I love the depth. I think, unfortunately for me and Hunter, we were both wrong. He had Duck Hodges making the team. I had Paxton Lynch making the team. We were both wrong. It's Josh Dobbs. They've got him back off the waiver wire. And so he's rostered, and so Sean Davis. And, Sean Davis, I know, was another polarizing player, but at least, we know he's quality depth. He can really do a great job of coming in, and he's starter capable. So that's why I love those 2 pickups. Do you have any more words to say on those 2 guys?
Yeah, I just want to say that I was still more right than you on Duck, that he's on the practice squad still. So I just want to get that one in real quick.
All right, thanks for the jab. I appreciate it.
But no, on Sean Davis, I think he's the more interesting one to me because he might actually have a role throughout the season, some spot playing. If the Steelers get down to Dobbs, I agree. Like, simply based on his legs, he is a more interesting option. He provides a slightly different look, could maybe squeeze out a win where maybe Duck wouldn't have been able to. And that one win might be all you need. Like last year, one more win, they're in the playoffs. So if Josh Dobbs could have created that, then make a win. But if they get down to Dobbs again, the season's in trouble, as we saw last year. I still don't fully believe in Dobbs, but I like the move. I like being aggressive and trying to rebuild your team. My favorite thing with these moves is that the Steelers organization is saying, we don't accept our performance these last couple of years. We are not okay with the results, and we're making changes. So that's awesome to see from your organization. They're clearly committed to switching things up and trying to improve. Now, whether those improvements actually pan out, we'll see. But it seems like they're making all the right moves for that to happen. And like Sean Davis is the interesting one to me because I saw a lot of Twitter reactions saying like, oh, we saw what he can do. Why would they do this? But you got to think, last year it was Sean Davis starting with Cam Kelly backing him up. Now it's Minka starting with Sean Davis backing him up. Like, it's such a better situation this year. And when Sean Davis, I agree, when he's your starter and you're counting on him, average at best. But as a backup, that's one of the best backup safeties you could hope for in the league. Can start, knows the system, is still young and should be developing and improving still, can hit for sure. I mean, that's a great backup. Like, if you're complaining about a backup safety of that caliber, you just want to complain.
No, not at all. And like you're saying, that's better than a Cam Kelly. It's better than a Dangerfield who have their roles. Don't get me wrong, they have their roles on the team, but he's Sean Davis is starter capable. So
yeah, absolutely.
We got breaking news on the Steeler Nation front. I just got a text here on the Facebook page. Thank you guys for jumping in. But the boss just sent me a link to SteelerNation.com. Deante jersey, autographed jersey giveaway, round 2, right now. So if you jump on to SteelerNation.com, they are giving away an autographed Deante Johnson jersey. It looks like it is the Color Rush jersey. I'm showing it here on Facebook. I'm telling you on Twitter. So shoot on over while you're listening to SteelerNation.com to enter. Start following them on Instagram and tag friends. And you click there and it tells you how to do everything. So jump on to Steeler Nation. Check out the Deante Johnson autographed jersey giveaway article, and it will walk you through on how to win one. Awesome job. Thank you guys for sharing that. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Justin.
On second thought, none of you guys should enter because I want that. Just let me enter and get that.
I know, man. He's quickly becoming my favorite.
I think I have him in every fantasy.
Oh, nice.
This year. You had to make it happen.
We'll go into depth with him a little bit later on in the show. But so right now, at least going back to the roster, one of the surprises to me was the Steelers going out and picking up Dustin Colquitt over Jordan Berry. So essentially, they're kind of the same kicker. They're both coffin kickers, which love pinning teams inside the 20. Don't get a lot of touchbacks. But interesting aspect for Colquitt. And what Tomlin said is he's got a higher floor. He likes his floor, which means he's not going to be shanking kicks. That's code word for this guy doesn't shank kicks. And unfortunately, Jordan was getting a little bit of the yips there toward the end of the season. I don't know if he had some issues here in preseason, but it looks like that's one of the reasons why they went with a move, because it only saves them a value of $700K. And do you know, Justin, that there's a family link to Colquitt?
Yeah,
Castro Nation.
Absolutely. His father, Craig Colquitt, was the punter for the Glory Days Steelers. So, yeah. I mean, it doesn't get much better for that. And it's cool for Dustin to come in now. He admitted as much. He's like, it feels great to be a Steeler and kind of carry on my dad's legacy to a degree. Obviously, the punter is not the showcased player on those teams, but it's very cool to still be a part of that and to carry that on. But to your point about the higher floor, I think that's exactly what the appeal is here. And it's exactly the way I felt about Dobbs and the Sean Davis signing, is that they're trying to eke out that one extra win. If just flipping the field in one game, might change the complexity of the game just a little bit, give them that one extra win. Yeah. Like Colquitt is not going to be a game-changing addition to the roster, really, but he might make a small enough difference for that one extra win that might be all they need. So it's just their commitment to eking out that extra win, I think, is extremely clear with these last-minute moves. And I listened to Pat McAfee actually talk about Barry versus Colquitt. It was a really cool interview. I was like, I never thought I would be interested in listening about punting. No offense, punters. I agree. You're very talented. It's very awesome what you do, but it's just not the most interesting aspect of the game. Yeah. But he was saying how Colquitt has a very short drop from his hand to his foot. He basically kicks the ball out of his hand, whereas Barry drops it pretty far. Yeah. And when you get into weather and weather conditions aren't ideal, the slightest amount of wind when you're dropping the ball far can affect that and create those shanks, can just move the ball offline a little bit. So Colquitt basically kicking it straight out of his hand should be much more consistent, especially with weather, which obviously with the Steelers' schedule and obviously where Pittsburgh is located, weather is going to be a factor later in the season. So all of it just points to Colquitt being more reliable. Probably won't have the 70-yard bomb that Barry would occasionally catch, but should also not have the 15-yard shank that Barry would occasionally catch. So that's the game that they're looking for, and that's, I think, going to be a good move for them.
Now, there's a couple of surprises, too, that we had. We had some surprise cuts. Big Dan finally not making a roster for like the first time in 8 years. He is on the practice squad, but the biggest surprise cut to me was Ryan Switzer, and it was because he was there with Ben through all the rehab. Looked like he reshaped his body for the NFL, but Steelers chose to keep 5 receivers, and he is the most pigeonholed receiver on the team, I guess, since they found kick returners and punt returners that are better than him, and they've also got people that can play special teams now that were also drafted that are kind of took his spot.
Yeah, I was surprised on several levels because I think, we talked about this before, and every time we predicted the Steelers wide receiver depth chart for the season, we had them keeping 6 receivers, first of all, which they didn't. Yeah. And we both penciled in Switzer as kind of a lock for that 5th receiver. And then obviously he not only did they not keep 6, but he wasn't even a lock for 6, let alone 5. So it's crazy that they just ended up flat out cutting him and not signing him to the practice squad, because like the second layer of that is that all the reports from training camp early on said that Switzer looked as good as any of the receivers, if not better, which kind of perked everybody up like, oh man, did he finally turn it around? And then he got injured and I guess just didn't look the same after the injury, or the injury just became a concern that they didn't know if they could rely on him for a full season again, because he finished last year injured as well. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's just the injuries adding up or what happened or what changed, but something definitely did, and they liked what they saw from the other guys better.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me that they didn't even put him on the practice squad. Yeah. But for me, the only thing I can think of here, playing devil's advocate for Switzer on the roster, is Steelers are carrying an extra offensive lineman because Castro is hurt. Mm-hmm. If Castro comes back healthy, they might move one of those linemen back to the practice squad and might pull Switzer back on the roster. That's just me. That could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just conspiracy theorying here. So that's It's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
But
who knows?
you
Who
never know.
knows? His connection with Ben, I mean,
Yeah.
Ben clearly likes the guy as a person and as a player. So it's just interesting all the way around. Definitely wouldn't surprise me to see him come back. To my knowledge, he hasn't been signed elsewhere
Yeah.
as of
No,
this
not yet.
recording. So
Not yet.
we'll see.
So a couple young additions to the team that weren't on the team last year that made the roster. James Pierre, who is a veteran, he started every single game with the Giant. No, this is the right. Is this guy? No, that's the other guy. That was. But James Pierre is an undrafted rookie free agent, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it back. I was thinking of the safety. Ray McLeod joining the team, and wide receiver Carlos Davis, defensive lineman. Also, so they've got a lot of youth coming onto the team, and I'm surprised Carlos Davis being drafted in the 7th round, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But kudos to him; he must have really showed what he could do, making the team. And so for me, it was a little bit of a surprise, but it was nice to see them, try to find the talent wherever they can find the talent to make sure that this is the best roster they can put together.
I love it because it just stuck with themes. Like it was clear that the front office had an approach for this offseason or for the upcoming season. And that approach was shake things up and try to eke out that one extra win. Like I've said several times, like these moves are all kind of upside moves. Yeah. They're all about stability and creating an extra win. So I love just where their head's at, that they're saying, we're not okay with just repeating the same results from the previous seasons. And I think that's exactly what all the moves you just mentioned say as well. They know what they have with Dan McCullers, and there's a reason they kept him on the practice squad, because if somebody does get injured, it'll be nice to just activate him, have him step in. He knows his role. He can play. Obviously, he's stuck around. I know he's a very polarizing guy. He's kind of like the Switzer of the defense, right? That people are like, get this guy off the team already. But he's really not that bad. Like Dan McCullers is not bad. He's just not great either, and that bothers a lot of Steelers fans. So he's stable though, but it's interesting to see what Carlos Davis can bring. I'm definitely interested in seeing more of him. Ray McLeod, of course, that's an interesting one as a kick returner. The Steelers, it feels like forever, have needed a dynamic kick returner that can just kind of change the game, give them, once again, that one extra little burst, put some extra points on the board, or set up Ben and company in a little better position to put points on the board. Could be a huge win for them if Ray McLeod, and obviously he stepped in late to camp and made an impact and made the team. So they definitely like what they see from him. So I'm definitely intrigued to see more on game day for him.
Yeah, now we'll talk about the depth chart and how the Steelers released it. And it's kind of interesting this year because we saw the word "or" listed for a couple positions, and it was something that the Steelers have never done in the past. The first one being Banner or Chooks being your starting right tackle. We've gotten word now that it is going to be Banner that is going to be the starting right tackle. So Slash Steel, I know he was asking, who's going to win that matchup, what's going to go on. Obviously, it was Banner for this one. So everybody's favorite tackle eligible is now the starting right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So get ready to cheer for him when they announce his name when he runs out of the tunnel.
Unfortunately, he's now ineligible, though.
Yes, right?
Ruined his whole brand.
They bounce him out when they bring in Chooks because they could do that.
They could
right?
Imagine that.
That would be just like last year. That would be something for Steeler fans already having him start on the field. Tackle eligible, Zach Banner bouncing out, Chooks going inside, and bam, they hit their plays again. So that would be awesome to see.
That would be beautiful. That would be absolutely beautiful. But it was a great battle to follow throughout camp. I think for sure, the best guy won. That's just how it works. That's how these very obvious camp battles work out. Zach Banner outplayed Chooks apparently in the coach's eyes, and I know both guys did good stuff. Yeah. Both guys also had to work against TJ Watt a lot, which isn't going to make many tackles look good at all. So on one hand, I'm sure there were some disappointing plays from them where they just got roasted by TJ.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they've been practicing against TJ Watt for a month and a half now, and they're really not going to experience anything like that on the field as an opponent. There's a few guys who can match TJ, I think, as an edge rusher, but for the most part, they've seen the best that there is to see. So it's good. On game day, it's like I always think when I covered MMA and UFC, the fighters who trained with other elite fighters obviously have better results inside the cage when it's actually fight night because they've seen this. They've seen elite players, fighters, and that's exactly how I feel about TJ. They have this experience against a guy like TJ Watt when it's just some average edge rusher coming at them, they're going to be like, wow, this is way easier. This is nice.
Yes. And then the other or on the team is Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron. And I like that being an or, because to me, like, this is the biggest change to the roster, is getting a receiver-capable tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something the Steelers, they really went out and they tried to do it before with that guy from San Diego. Who was that guy?
Ladarius Green.
Ladarius Green, yep, because that guy was going to be that role. Eric Green back in the past, but he was blocker capable as well. But Ebron is a legit wide receiver tight end. He can block. He can block. He's not as good a blocker as Vance, obviously, but I think for different situations, by saying or for these players, if we're going to go run heavy, Vance is going to start. If we're going to go pass heavy, Ebron's going to start. Sometimes we're going to have both of them starting. So this is if you go to 2 tight end set, 2 receivers, and in the backfield. So it's a way for flexibility, but I think this one is not. It's not a way to disingenuously place an or for 2 players when they have skill sets that can fit different styles of play for different teams.
Absolutely. And Vance is a capable receiver. Probably he's a more capable receiver than Ebron is a blocker, I think. But the 2 tight end sets you touched on briefly, I think that's where things get super interesting. The matchup problems that the Steelers are going to be able to create, the versatility they're going to be able to have on offense. Man, that is going to get super exciting. I can't wait to see what they can draw up and what they can do to kind of exploit these mismatches, because they've got size and speed in a weird way everywhere. I look through this roster, man, and this goes on offense and defense. I don't really see a hole. Even special teams, I don't really see a hole. And this is the first time that I've felt this way in years upon years. There's always something you can look at and say, this could be better. But and obviously things can be better. You could have all pros at every position. But as far as being realistic about it, this is as good of a roster as I've ever seen the Steelers trot out, and that's why I'm so high on them this year. If everything gels and Ben's fine, that's the great what if. If Ben's fine, the Steelers are going to do work.
Yes, they are. And even their backups are good. Like, I'm comfortable with most of the backups on the team. I mean, obviously you're going to lose some production if you get to your backup defensive linemen, backup linebackers. But, I mean, this is a thick team. I mean, even with Alualu coming in, I mean, he's stepped in and been able to play those 3 to 5 techs as well for the past couple years. Anytime Tuitt goes down or Hayward goes down. But hopefully those guys will be healthy this year. That's the way. That's what I just want to see, 1 year where Tuitt and Hayward are healthy all season. And I think that this defense would be a wrecking ball. Not only a wrecking ball, I think this could be up there with an all-time defense, because that's how disruptive those 2 players are, and allow everybody else on the team to be so much better, because they're eating up blockers for the linebackers. They're forcing pressures for our defensive backs that they have to cover in a shorter amount of time now. You're talking about 3-second coverage for a defensive back. They'll take that any second of the day. I mean, that's an ideal situation for a defensive back.
Everything about it. I talked to Steven Nelson about that last year and a couple other guys, and they weren't hiding it. They're like, when these guys are putting that much pressure on the quarterback, it makes our job that much easier, which is super obvious. I feel like most people who follow football know that, but it's an underrated aspect of what that pass rush does. Everybody looks at the sacks, but a QB hurry is sometimes just as good as a sack can lead to an interception, a bad decision, an incompletion obviously is a good result as well. So no matter how you cut it, like you said, as long as the health is there, this has to be one of the best Steelers defenses, like you said, of all time. And I know that's crazy to say. It's crazy to say, but it just has to be, because last year it was close and this year it should be even better. So what do you do?
Right. So, but another spot on the roster, too, that I wanted to highlight and talk about a little bit. Marcus Allen was listed as the backup to Bush with Ulysses Grant III, UG3, being 3rd behind Marcus Allen. And I don't know if that's a misprint, because everything that we've been hearing out of camp is UG3 is killing it in camp. He looks amazing. And we just assumed that he would be the slotted backup next, like 3rd interior linebacker at both positions to jump on. So head scratcher there, seeing him listed as third behind Marcus Allen, who just joined the linebacker group just a few short weeks ago.
Yeah, and I just want to shout out you for saying Ulysses Grant instead of Gilbert. Like you gave us a nice,
gosh, it's Gilbert. Thank you.
gave us a nice Civil War throwback for us. That's awesome. I love it.
That's why I got you on the show to correct me.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe he'll change his name. It has a nice ring to it, the Commander or something on the field. I like it. But dude, I don't know. I don't look too far into the depth chart where that's concerned because I think just situationally they're slightly different players. You know, sure. Marcus Allen is more of obviously a hybrid safety coming down from safety and now playing linebacker.
And I like that move.
Yeah. Like I could see him in big nickel or dime situations, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Gilbert, for sure, you know, some stuffing the run, he's a bigger, more traditional kind of linebacker, but still very quick as well. Gilbert showed good flash last preseason as well. If anybody remembers some of his plays, I think he had a pick, maybe a sack. You know, he made some nice splashy plays that people were like, okay. Because obviously Devin Bush was the hot new guy in town, but everybody was like, this other guy that got a little later looks like he can play too. So they have solid depth, it looks like, at inside linebacker. So I'm excited to see Gilbert get some reps, see what he can do. He had a back injury late last year that definitely hampered him. So see how he recovers from that and plays. But this is about Vince and Bush, you know. Once again, if it gets down to Gilbert and Allen playing a ton of snaps, something's gone wrong because Bush looks primed. I think I don't know how, because Devin Bush, they trade up for him, number 10 overall pick. He's like such a hot ticket, but he's flying under the radar again. Like even after a sensational rookie year,
right?
it felt like he didn't get the attention or the praise that he deserved, but for Steelers fans, I think that's ideal. I think just letting him go about his business and do his thing is the ideal situation. But it's just weird to me that he's not talked about more because he had a great rookie year.
Yeah. He was shot out of like a rocket, too. First couple games.
Yes.
Like turnovers, fumbles, touchdowns, interceptions. Like boom, 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 boom. And then he did hit the rookie wall toward the end of the year, but he's still getting tackles. He led the team in tackles in his first year. So, you know, I'm happy as hell that the Steelers made that move. That's a huge move. That is a franchise-changing move.
Yeah. To
move up in the draft and grab a guy who they know fits their biggest weakness on the team and solidified it instantly, instant starter. And I know we'll talk about him too coming up here later on because I've got a thing marked here to talk about. So we'll have some more Devin Bush talk coming up.
Nice. Okay.
Interesting here too on the wide receiver front on the depth chart. Deante Johnson and Juju were named as the starters. So not Washington and Juju anymore. It's Deante Johnson and Juju. So mild change, and for a second-year player, I love that. I think he should be on there. He's a heck of a guy, and we'll talk about him a little bit more coming up. But Washington, of course, would be your third. Claypool would be fourth. But the Steelers are keeping 5 wide receivers this year, and like we mentioned and alluded to earlier, it's got to be because of Eric Ebron.
Has to.
Because he's essentially that extra receiver, so why do you need to keep 6 receivers? You just don't.
Exactly. Makes perfect sense in that regard. So I think that's exactly why. Ebron is the 5th receiver. You can easily split him out, an empty set. Yeah. And he's fine.
And now we've got new kick returners. Both kick returners coming to us from rookies. You have McLeod, who we were talking about Ray McLeod, the wide receiver, and him joining the team, making waves. He returned a kick for a touchdown in his first time doing kick returns in training camp. They love him. Mcfarland's going to join him, the talented running back from University of Maryland, the speed back. So we've got a lot of speed. This is probably our fastest 2 return people that we've ever had returning kickoffs to start the game.
Yeah, it seems like every time the Steelers get excited about a kick returner, it falls flat somehow. You know, I think of Dre Archer, Chris Rainey, and these guys, and it's just never works. So here's to hoping.
Was it Roussard we picked up from the CFL? I think he had a punt return, though.
Here's to hoping that they figured it out finally. I like Anthony McFarland a ton. I love his game, his tape. He's super fast, but he runs way more powerfully than I think he gets credit for as well. You know, there is some legit size and power there as well. He's not Dre Archer, you know, at all. everybody wants to say he's small just because he's so fast and elusive, but he's actually just not small. They're just trying to pigeonhole him as that guy, and he's just not that guy.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what he can do in offense, not just returning kicks, but actually getting in the game, maybe some third down back type stuff as well. So he's an interesting player. And McLeod, we already talked about it. To come in late to camp and make that kind of impact is not easy to do at all. Like he wasn't making the team unless he made plays and stood out. Like this wasn't what Switzer didn't do. This isn't Switzer getting cut because of what he didn't do. It's him getting cut because of what McLeod did do. So that's a huge win for the Steelers there. Punt return, obviously it's got to be Deonte, which
it is. You're right. You got it. He was our all-pro, second-team all-pro last year. He returns again to be the starting punt returner. Well, just one final point I just want to make is since McLeod and Mcfarland are listed as the starting kick returners, they're going to be active on game day. So we're looking at all 5 wide receivers being active on game day because Claypool is a monster. He's like on every single special teams, coverage, return teams, kickoff teams, punt teams. He's so big, he can even get in the blocking teams for field goals and things like that. I'd love to have him out there on fake field goals. That'll be a fun thing to watch.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. But this is big because usually we'd always be carrying a wide receiver inactive on game day, and that was just always the way it's been for the last 3 years since I've been really watching the game day activations and deactivations. So it's going to be really neat to see all this personnel that the Steelers have at their availability now for Fichtner and Canada to be able to utilize in this great new offense, which Ben just stated yesterday when he was interviewed that Canada's got his fingerprints all over it, and went on to discuss on how it feels more like a college-style offense in that there's so much motion, and that's what we need. I mean, moving players around with this much talent on a team creates more mismatches to make Ben's job easier. And I would love for them to actually finally get into doing that.
It's so juicy, man. It's really hard. It's hard not to get excited about the possibilities. And I understand some resistance to doing this kind of flashy, like you said, all this motion and stuff. If anybody's watched any tape of Canada's offenses in the past, they're crazy. It's crazy to watch.
Yeah.
It almost looks illegal. It's like, okay, that had to be an illegal shift or something like that. No, that many people can't move before the snap, but obviously he does things within the rules and it works. But it's interesting. If it works, it's going to work big, I think. I mean, we saw what Baltimore, Lamar Jackson and that whole offense did last year. Very untraditional offense there as well. They redesigned their entire offense around Lamar and that rushing attack. So, and we saw that worked out for them. So if Canada can do anything even remotely similar as far as kind of changing the way the game is played and creating those mismatches, it's going to be huge. Like you said, you've got Ebron, Claypool, Juju, Deonte, obviously so many weapons. Just some of these mismatches, it's going to be impossible to cover if they execute it right. So it's exciting on that level for sure.
And now we're getting to the practice squad. So, this year being COVID-19, we did not have standard reporters or Alex Kazora from the Depot in there, giving us a camp diary. What we got was the beat reporters, like Mark Boley and Brooke and Vicky and them just telling us what's going on in camp and just trying to munch down on all the information we can. But we did get some good information on some of these players, and I just want to go over who the Steelers decided to keep, because they didn't keep anybody from other teams on our roster. Everybody they kept was on their training camp from this season. So Trajan Brandy, the defensive back, made the team. Antoine Brooks Jr., the drafted safety that they picked up. So every single player that they picked is at least on the team or on the practice squad. He was the only person that didn't get rostered from the draft pick. So that's a strong draft, and hopefully he can build into more of like a Marcus Allen role on this team, which is what his film looks like to me.
Right.
Deion Kane, who joined the team last year as a wide receiver, we're able to keep vets now on the practice squad because of COVID. Practice squad increased from 10 to 16. We had 11 in the past because we had an international player with Christian Scott Williamson. Big long name, CSW. But we don't have him on the team anymore. We don't have that roster exemption, so we're stuck at 16. But I love that move by the NFL to make sure you have more players, and we'll get to one more rule here in a second after we go through the squad. Amara Darbo, another receiver making the team that we knew about. Trey Edmonds, who's Terrell's brother, who was a running back who was rostered last year. He's on the practice squad. J-Rone Elliott, the old linebacker we had from last year as well, came back. Derwin Gray, the versatile lineman from Maryland again. We love Maryland players.
Tomlin does, yeah.
Your guy, Devlin Hodges, the Duck, made the roster, much to my inability to pick correctly. And then we have a couple of XFLers, a couple XFL linemen. Jaron Jones made the play, made the team, and Anthony Coyle made the squad. And they were both from the XFL, so good for the Steelers for hanging on to a couple of those players. Dan McCullers, who was always on the roster, he's still here, but now he's on the practice squad, so he's making much less. Somebody did an article, he's making like $12,000 a week instead of like $125,000 a week, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm glad he's at least there for depth. Henry Mondeau made the team. He's another young defensive end that the Steelers liked in training camp. Kevin Rader was in practice squad last year, and again this year. Curtis Riley is the one that made the most waves in training camp. Actually made the 53 roster before they picked up Sean Davis, and he would have been on the roster had they not picked up Sean Davis. But I think it's a good move, and I think he's going to be a good player for them as well. Wendell Smallwood, the vet running back, and last guy, Corus Waltman, the punter, who's a punter/kicker, so they can carry an extra person in case they have problems on special teams. So, I'm thinking that this is a very solid practice squad. The other rule now is you're allowed to keep 4 protected. So usually you can poach from anybody's practice squad, take whoever you want as long as you roster them. Now you can protect 4 players, and no matter what, you cannot pick them up. So Steelers this week, and they change it each week, but this week they chose to protect Mondeau, the linebacker, Elliott, the other linebacker, Riley, the defensive back, who we all love, who made the squad initially, and Smallwood, the veteran running back. So one quick point I want to say here, and then I want to hear from you, Hunter, is on Smallwood. I think Smallwood is the backup to the 1-2. So if something happens to Connor or if something happens to Snell, he's rostered and he's going to be rotated in those 1-2 slots.
I agree. He has starting experience. He can do it all a little bit. He can catch passes. He can run. He should be able to learn the system pretty quickly. One thing that's underrated with running backs is simply their pass protection. That's so huge for running backs in the NFL, and it's not sexy or fun to talk about, but they got to be able to do that. And that's exactly why Trey Edmonds made the practice squad again, because he's a great blocker and he's great on special teams.
Yes.
So they know that he might not be a game-changing running back, but he's an incredibly reliable guy to have on the team, to have around. And that's ditto for McCullers, like we said earlier. He's not a splashy player, but he knows what to do and is capable of doing it. So that's kind of what you're looking for these practice squad guys. Mondeau, the other defensive lineman, everybody was just talking about how strong he was throughout training camp, and we saw some of that last year as well. He was on the practice squad last year too, but that's another guy that I think they're keeping around because he has so much raw strength and potential untapped talent that there is legitimate upside with him. So that's cool. Hodges, obviously, I like seeing him on the practice squad. I don't think he's that bad. I never thought he was that bad.
Take that knife.
Yeah. I'm gonna. He's just better. He's just better than Paxton Lynch. I don't know what to say. Paxton Lynch isn't good.
Not better than Josh Dobbs, just so you know.
Apparently
the
not.
Rocket scientist.
And for the record, to be totally fair, Duck Hodges did not beat out Josh Dobbs last year either in training camp. They traded Dobbs. I seen a lot of people saying that, but that's inaccurate. He didn't beat him out. He actually didn't make the team. Yeah.
Dobbs regressed. He threw a lot of interceptions last year. That's why they wanted to move him. They moved, Duck to the practice squad and then brought him up to the roster when they got rid of Dobbs. So it was a smart move from the Steelers.
Absolutely. So this has just been the offseason of smart, calculated moves for sure. It seems like everything we've talked about to this point, you can go through and make a very logical explanation for why it happened. I don't think there's a lot of secrets. There's not a lot of gamesmanship happening here. It's simply the Steelers trying to put together the team that's going to win the most football games. Makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah. So now we're getting up to the point for injury status for the game coming up. The only one we know that's out is David Castro. It's already been listed across multiple news sources that he's not going to be playing this week. It looks like, why did I just forget his name? The guy that we just picked up, from Kansas City, the interior lineman. Is it Wisniewski?
Wisniewski, yeah.
Wisniewski. Why did I draw a blank on Wisniewski? Man,
it's just a weird name.
Yeah, so he's going to be starting in that spot, right guard. Interestingly enough, though, that is where Dotson started in college. He was a right guard in college. So if anything happens in that slot, maybe they might pop in Dotson a little bit. I don't know. But at least we picked up that veteran interior lineman that can play any of the guard positions or center positions across the line. Genius to have and great to have here week 1. So I'm not upset about him not being in.
For sure. You hate to see it this early in the season and hate to see Castro unable to play already week 1. But on the flip side, this is exactly why they signed Wisniewski. You know, this is what that move was at the time. And now this is exactly why you make those moves when you do, so that if something like this happens, you've got your security. But you alluded to it a little bit. I think Dotson looked great throughout camp. Awesome reports. His college tape is absolutely absurd. Highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. How that guy slipped in the draft, didn't get a combine invite.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. It truly doesn't make any sense. I could see Dotson being the steal of that draft class for sure in time. And I think Wisniewski's going to have a short leash. I think Wisniewski's very solid and stable and he'll be fine. But I think if for some reason he's just not getting it, you know, he's not executing his assignments properly or just making mistakes, I think Dotson's in, because I think they did like what they saw and they're simply going with experience here week 1. Maybe not the ideal situation for a rookie, protecting Ben Roethlisberger, making his first game back week 1 of a weird NFL season with a shortened training camp and no rookie camp. Not a good time to put a rookie in. So I think they're simply going with the experience and the sure thing, so to speak. But man, if he slips up, I think Dotson could snag that spot very quickly.
Yeah. Another couple injury notes. Cameron Canaday came back, so that's big, having the long snapper ready to go for the season opener. Wisniewski as well. He was limited again, but he came back on the 3rd. And then we don't have any information since really the 3rd. Nobody's telling us anything on who's injured or who's still injured, but I had Cam Sutton listed as missing practice on the 2nd, as well as Chase Claypool. Usually they don't give vet days off to rookies, so I don't know if something's up with Chase Claypool, but we haven't heard any other rumblings. These are just speculations just because I don't have all the information. I'll still be listening today, where they're supposed to come out with the injury report for the week today to let us know who's going to be eligible. And if they're not listed at all, the only person that I'm really thinking of seeing on there would be Castro, and that would be ideal. So moving on, next past the injuries, we've got, of course, a game coming up on Monday Night Football. Are you ready for some football, Hunter?
Oh, unreal. So ready. Been so ready. This game tonight feels like a Steelers game to me almost. Like
I'm as excited to watch, like, as excited tonight for football as I normally am. I feel you there. Like, I'd be more excited if it was the Steelers.
Absolutely, obviously.
I'm so excited for meaningful football being on television tonight.
I've literally never been this excited for NFL football just because of the weirdness of 2020. Finally being here, I'm so happy, dude.
Awesome, dude. Oh, that's great. And so, how do you see the matchups here coming up for the Giants game? What's the Giants out to you?
Yeah, man, the Giants are a weird team for sure. They're young. They're young. They've had a ton of turnover. And this isn't – I'm not talking about the roster, their coaching staff. Brand new head coach, brand new offensive coordinator, brand new defensive coordinator. The special teams coordinator is the only primary coach that is consistent from the last couple of years. So it's crazy the amount of shifting they've done. Clearly a rebuilding football team. They were not good last year. They're not projected to be good this year. But there's enough interesting pieces that are dangerous, and especially the danger of the unknown. Like I just said, all these new coaches, all these new schemes, new players. Yeah. There's no tape. There's no tape on this Giants team. So that's a problem for sure for game planning. If everything clicks, and we've seen this happen in the NFL for sure, where a new coach, there's a new kind of spirit in town that rejuvenates everybody and gels everybody together, and they're playing as a team versus, maybe playing as individuals or not buying into the previous coach's philosophy. Yeah. Maybe everything clicks under these guys, and maybe the Giants far overperform what people expect because Daniel Jones, rookie quarterback last year, got plenty of playing time, plenty of tape on him. Kind of up and down, but overall had a pretty decent season. He finished with like an 88 quarterback rating. I think he had 24 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Not a bad ratio at all. Actually very respectable for a rookie. Yeah. But one thing I noticed going through his game logs is that he had amazing games, of like 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks against bad defenses, and completely terrible games against good defenses. Like New England tore him up for sure. Like every time he met a defense that was above average, he struggled big time. So he was feasting on the lesser defenses for sure. And that's kind of what balanced out his stats. So obviously you like to think the Steelers have an above average defense. I would call it top 3.
I'm calling them an elite defense this year.
Yeah, sure. I think elite. I think elite is an appropriate term. And of course, coming into year 2, he'll be better. He should be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. So I expect some developments from him. They still have Saquon Barkley, who might be the best running back in football. Game changer, can break one off at any time. He's a problem. But outside of that, on offense, there's not a lot to get too scared about. The receivers, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Golden Tate. Golden Tate's also injured. He's questionable. They're not sure whether he's even going to play on Monday night. So that receiving core doesn't strike a lot of fear, for sure. But again, Saquon, Evan Ingram, their tight end, can break open a game. He's a really good receiving tight end, very fast, kind of Ebron-ish in how he can break open the game and create mismatches, but also Ingram is very injury prone. So they haven't seen the consistency from him they want to see. Overall, it's not a great team on paper. But like I said, if everything gels, if the philosophy's right, if Daniel Jones specifically takes that next step forward, they could create some problems. And of course, week 1, man, anything can happen. These teams can take a while to settle in. We've heard Ben talk about it. Yeah. Ben was very candid about it, which surprised me in a recent interview. He was saying how the team, nothing ever feels right the first couple weeks of the season. You're still getting acclimated. You're still settling in. You're certainly not firing on all cylinders and a perfectly oiled machine right out of the gate. So if the Steelers come out slowly and they're not ready, and the Giants come out with a little fire under this new regime ready to impress, could be a closer game than people realize. But overall, it looks like a win for the Steelers for sure.
Yeah, I expect them to be more run heavy, picking up the coaches from Dallas to come in and running their team now. So, I'm expecting heavy doses of Saquon. Their defense is probably going to give us the most problems out of anything on their team, just because for me the matchup is going to be who's going to get up to game speed first to win the game. Is it going to be Jones, the quarterback of the Giants, or is it going to be Ben Roethlisberger, who's taken a year off with the Steelers?
Right.
So to me, that is the matchup of the game. And, both are question marks. I mean, you can make arguments either way because we know Jones is a young quarterback. Steelers love feasting and pressuring young quarterbacks. He does not like being pressured. That's an advantage, but with the new offense, we're expecting more running plays to Barkley. We're expecting more zone runs. We're expecting more passes out of the backfield, quick passes to Barkley.
Right.
So that's where they can really – because Barkley, if you guys remember, I don't even know if you've seen a lot of film, but Barkley is essentially like a Le'Veon Bell in that he's coming out of the backfield as a full slot receiver. He runs the route tree. He can do anything, and he has the speed and the hands to execute. So it's a tough mismatch, and it's going to be – a lot of it's going to be heavy on Devin Bush to be able to try to minimize his ability to make plays coming out of that backfield because he's probably going to be the best running back we see this season.
Yeah. I mean, you could play every team. You could play all 32 teams and I think still make a case that Saquon's the best running back that you see. He might just be the best running back in football. So,
and that's overall like total. Like his ability to do everything, his breakaway speed, his power, his hands, his route running, just overall. And back when he was a kick returner, I just looked on today just to see if he was their kick returner. I'm like, I hope he's not returning kicks anymore.
No,
because that's how dangerous this guy is.
Right.
He can score anytime he has
one of those guys. Just get the ball in his hands and let him go. He was so good at Penn State and such a blue chipper. And he's one of those guys who, in college, the way they talked about him, a surefire, top pick in the draft. And then he actually lived up to all the hype. He's just one of those guys who is exactly as good as you've heard and just does it all. You can't say enough good things about him. However, like we said, outside of him, there's not a ton that terrifies me on that Giants offense, and especially their offensive line is not great. They've got a center making his first start as a center ever. He was their guard last year towards the end of the season, their starting guard. So he's moving to center, making his first start. That is not the defense you want to meet if you're getting your feet wet. So So I could see them having some problems. Their defense, like you said, they're a great run-stopping defense. They've also beefed up their secondary a little bit this offseason. So could be a tough defense. Could definitely create some challenges. They also signed Blake Martinez from the Packers in free agency, who has been a tackling machine. He had like 155 tackles last season. So
Wow.
ridiculous. However, Blake
Yeah.
Martinez can't really cover, doesn't really have athleticism. He's kind of that traditional game managing, stuff the run kind of inside linebacker. So it's interesting. There's a lot of changes for the Giants, but like I said, there's nothing that pops off the page that's like they might actually win this. This should still be the Steelers' game to lose.
Yeah. And now it is the time of the podcast where we take questions from Steeler Nation. Log on to SteelerNation.com. Click on the forum button, join the forum, and you can ask questions to be released here on the podcast, or you can jump on Twitter Live and ask. You can jump on Facebook Live and ask. As you see, we're very, very open to however we can get information. But Hines57 over at the SteelerNation.com forum asked, can Tuitt put in a full 16-game season? And for me, he hasn't been able to put in a full 16-game season yet as a starter. I think the most we've gotten out of him are 2 14 seasons. We had a 13 season, and then he was hurt almost all of last season. So, that's why I'm hoping he can stay as a starter and play. Hunter, your thoughts?
I'm not sure how to answer that, man, unfortunately, because obviously Tuitt wants to put together a 16 game. It's not like he's not trying to. So far, like you said, he hasn't. So history tells us he won't, but that doesn't mean he can't. Like, if the question is, can he, I guess he can. Like, his body could hold up, or it might not. Injuries are weird, especially at that position. And his body type is very strange, too. He's a very long, tall defensive lineman, so he's got weird leverage, which serves him well whenever he can use it. It's what makes him so powerful. But at the same time, it creates these weird angles that lead to those kind of pec tears and the triceps injuries that he suffered from. So it's a problem of anatomy with him, and unfortunately, that's not going to change. So I don't know. Will he? I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
We'll say Steeler Nation. I'd love to see him healthy the whole season. And then Hines57 also asks, how does Ben's elbow look after surgery and rehab, and that other thing he is fighting against, Father Time? And one thing I want to share with everybody, especially when you're on Facebook, check out right here on YouTube. He has the Bigger Than Ben going on, and it is the third installment, just came out yesterday. And it's an awesome, it's getting in behind the scenes and understanding Ben's thought processes and what he had to go through to come back to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yesterday's third one went through his whole rehabilitation, how it affected him, the doctor's reactions to how he was coming back quickly, actually way quicker than anticipated, and how it affected the family, because the family was a big part of his rehab, because he had to rehab and do everything at home. So he got to be a family man, stay at home, rehab. And so the big things, I guess, going back to your questions, at least he got a year off with the surgery itself in that elbow. He's saying he doesn't have pain in there anymore. He always had a vertical tear in the center of one of his tendons. That's gone. That's repaired. And he's had that, he said, for 8 years, 10 years. So now being able to throw a football without pain, I think it's looking great. He's throwing the ball as good from the reports, as strong, if not stronger, than he's done in the past. Though I know, back in the 80s, I remember these same reports about Terry Bradshaw's elbow being great and better than ever, and then he comes out, can't throw farther than 40 yards. But Ben can throw the football. Ben is hurling it. You see him right here. He's taking some these are his first passes that we're looking at here. If you're watching it on Facebook and on YouTube, once we post it back up on our YouTube site. So those were his first official NFL being able to throw a football again. And as you see, his beard just keeps getting bigger and bigger until he finally got to step out on that field and share that great promo video that was only 9 seconds long that I talked about for a half hour back when it happened.
Yeah, right.
But I'm excited as hell to watch him play, and I think he's going to be a new Big Ben, and he's going to be a great Big Ben this season.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on all fronts. I think the difference between Ben and Terry Bradshaw, besides modern medicine and recovery and all that they have nowadays to help Ben out, is that we have documentation this year. Cell phone videos from camp of Ben making these throws and throwing the ball further than 40 yards and looking fine. So everything we've seen, heard, read says Ben's going to be fine. Now, Father Time is obviously undefeated, but once again, modern medicine recovery, it's amazing how much longer careers these players are having. Tom Brady's 43. He looks fine. We see quarterbacks going to Breeze. How old is Breeze? I don't know. Older than Ben.
Oh, gosh. He's way older than Ben.
Yeah. So,
yeah, they're like 45 and 49. Like,
it's ridiculous.
You're getting them up in the old,
Yeah.
like the extended 40s with both Breeze and with Brady. I mean, they're old guys. They've been in the league and established before Ben was drafted. I remember him beating us when we had Cordell Stewart.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you've got these guys up there in age. It's not impossible these days for a guy to make it, into his 40s and still excel at an elite level. Yeah. And dude, the year off, I know it's been said, this isn't a unique idea. That year off benefited Ben. Like, I'm 100% positive of that. Physically, mentally, everything about it. He has more fire. In all of his interviews, you can hear how much more focused he is, because now it's about proving people wrong. And I think when you're a 2-time Super Bowl winner, you're a Super Bowl MVP, and you flirted with these things, not a Super Bowl MVP, my bad. But should have been. He should have been. But that's blasphemy. It's blasphemy. But when you've done these things and you're reaching the end of your career, it could be easy to step back and say, I've already done it. I don't have the same fire. But now he has a definite reason to have that fire back. Yeah. And I think he has it. So I think, all things considered, I expect a better Ben, legitimately. And I'm not saying that means he's throwing for 6,000 yards and breaking every record he put out there, but I think we'll see more consistency and just a very high level of play from him, as Steelers fans expect.
We got another question stating from Hines. Do you think we will see much progression from Washington and Johnson at wide receiver, given that they did not get to play with Ben, save for one game last year? And for me, DJ is an absolute stud. I'm going to share something right here with the Facebook crew, and it is a highlight on Steelers Depot from Dave Bryan, and he broke down all 18, which led the league, of Deante Johnson's forced missed tackles. And it is great to watch. It'll play here while we talk about him. But Deante Johnson is like AB light. And he does things kind of like, he was the best receiver I've ever seen, college draft, getting off the line of scrimmage, beating a press.
Yeah.
He can do it. He can do it with hand positioning. He can do it with feet. He can do it with feints. I mean, and he's just untouchable at the line of scrimmage. And once he gets into open field, as you see right here, he jukes the first player out. And just like, you have trouble bringing him down. So I see him really progressing with Ben, because Ben's going to be like, oh, wow, this is like throwing to AB.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to be like, I mean, AB was very savvy that he knew the spots in the zone to get to, and he's got to work. DJ's got to work that rapport with Ben. Like, DJ hasn't had to play backyard football yet. He doesn't know to streak when Ben's getting scrambling. So like, that's the stuff he's going to learn, and that's going to be fun to watch his progression. But I think he is going to be that possession down receiver that we need on this team to move the chains, and he's probably going to be a go-to player. Washington, the same way, can only benefit. He really had the toughest job, and to lead the team in yardage last season with that much turnover in quarterbacks to have different guys throw, but he was consistent across all three quarterbacks and making plays for all three quarterbacks. So I do see him progressing, and I think he's going to get better, and it'll be fun to see. If he doesn't step up, obviously, Claypool's going to take that slot if he doesn't.
Right.
And then the question is, if Juju's healthy, can he get 100 catches without AB on the other side of the field? Right here, he's got DJ on the other side of the field. It's essentially AB light, and I think that he can get close to it. If not, DJ might get 100 catches this season. It's going out there. He led the team in receptions last year, but he's got a chance at it. I mean, I'm going crazy on that, but if he got 100 receptions, you're like, Stryker, you got 100 receptions, I would not be surprised.
Dude, I think
this is the way he plays. He's a possession guy.
Yeah.
He can get you six to eight receptions a game.
I think Juju finishes with more yards, but Deonte finishes with more receptions. I'm right with you on that. 100 receptions, easily achievable. Yeah. It's like you said, he doesn't have a ton of experience and rapport with Ben, but you mentioned the AB light thing, and I know this gets overstated, and comparing anybody to Antonio Brown is really it's not fair. It's not fair to compare because
he was an amazing.
He was.
That's why I can't say he is AB.
Right.
AB was one of the best to play, and unfortunately, he couldn't keep it together in between the years, and that's the only thing that separated him from being an all-time bet. Right.
All that said, though,
yeah,
Deonte did have one of the best rookie seasons ever for a Steelers receiver.
Yep.
He does possess those traits. Everything we've seen from him genuinely looks like AB, and I feel comfortable saying it because I asked Deonte about that comparison last rookie minicamp.
Yeah.
And he embraced it. He's like, I love AB's game, and of course I watch AB play and try to emulate the things that he does that makes him successful. So and Deonte on Instagram, I think this offseason was training with Antonio Brown a little bit. That video circulated. So it's no secret that he looks and plays like AB. They're very similar, and that's not a bad thing. I don't know if people think it's a bad thing or reaching or whatever, but it's no secret that Deonte wants to be like AB. What young receiver wouldn't want to be like AB? That's a great thing. We should hope that he turns into AB. But yeah, I mean, Deonte, to answer the question, Deonte for sure stepped for it. For sure, I would bet. I don't bet money on sports, but if I did, I would bet money on that he leads the team in receptions and is a fringe Pro Bowler, if not a Pro Bowler. He's going to be great. Like I said earlier, I took him in every fantasy league. I'm very confident in Deante Johnson. James Washington, on the other hand, I could see him having a similar season to last year statistically, which is fine. It's just that there's so many more weapons this year that there's just not enough to go around. They're not going to support three.
Claypool's going to get some touchdowns and get some yardage. And
they're not going
to get a lot of touchdowns and yardage.
I think Juju and Deonte are 1,000-yard receivers, and you can't support a third 1,000-yard receiver. It's just not realistic that Washington would also elevate. He had 745 or something last year, so it's not realistic for him to go much higher than 800, like maybe 800 at the most. So I think he'll be a better player. It's just that the opportunities won't be there for him statistically to be better. So it's going to benefit the Steelers offense overall. I just think when you look at it in pure numbers, it's not going to look like he took a big step forward.
Yeah. And then Hoot asked us a question. The G-men are struggling at both offensive tackle positions. A couple weeks ago, there was chatter that 2 rookies would start. Does it still seem like the case? And if so, I say 6 sacks. Do you take the over or under? And for me, 6 sacks would be an incredible number to attain your first game back into the season. But I think that as far as for being the over-under line is too high. I would have shot the line at like 4 sacks maybe, and that's still a benefit. If the Steelers can get to Jones 4 times, they're doing great. If they're over 4, if they hit 6, they probably won that game big because he's got to throw the ball a lot more than they're running it to try to get back in the game.
Yeah, the rookie offensive tackles thing is an interesting point. I don't know, unfortunately, to answer that question. I don't know if that's still the case. If it is, you know what, man, screw it. I'll take the over on 6 sacks. It's gonna get nasty. That's gonna get nasty if there's 2 rookie tackle plus a center making his first start at center.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think could definitely hamper that is how effective as a check down option Saquon is. I could see him just dropping, just dump it off to Saquon. He's a great safety valve. Evan Ingram, good tight end, little safety valve there as well. So he has options if he's getting pressured to just kind of get rid of the ball, which might hurt that line. And anything over 6 sacks is absolutely ridiculous to begin with. But like we've said repeatedly throughout this podcast, the Steelers defense can do it. They absolutely can. So it wouldn't surprise me for sure. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I'll take the over just to have a little fun.
Nice. So we go Drink Iron City finally got in. Thank you very much for getting your questions in, Drink Iron City. I was worried about you. But he said, with the recent retirement of Ryan Shazier, the question of retiring number 50 has arose. Can you guys discuss both pro and con to that topic? I wrote an article on that yesterday, SteelerNation.com, going over and read it. I'm more of a pro end, but at least I think this is something that should be discussed. Steelers have only retired 2 other numbers, and that was Ernie Stoutner, who was the best player that they had on defense and also played some defensive line, also played some offensive guard for them in the 60s before the 70s teams. And, he 10-time Pro Bowler, 8-time Pro Bowler. I mean, 9-time All-Pro. The guy he was what the Steelers thought about when teams played against him. They hated playing against him. he got his number retired, and then number 70, and then number 75, Mean Joe Green, started the first draft pick for Chuck Noll, the linchpin of the Steel Curtain, started it all. I mean, those two, obviously, the best numbers to retire when, especially they got a couple of numbers that they don't issue, 12 being one for Bradshaw, and then a couple more down the line. But 50, I had to actually think about because, yeah, he played a short amount of time. He came into the league as the fastest timed linebacker ever, though he didn't run it in the combine. He ran it at his pro day. It was like a 4.38, and he's running speed drills against the receivers and beating them on our team.
That was awesome.
That's how much of a freak this guy was. He started immediately out of the box. He was a playmaker out of the box, but really started to get into it year 2. And I had to mention at the end of the second year, he was the biggest part of the miracle meltdown in Cincinnati for that wild card game. He forced a fumble early in that game by crushing the running back. I forget the name of it. Was it Bernard?
Bernard, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he destroyed him, knocked him out of the game pretty much with that hit, and should have returned that. That play shouldn't have been blown dead, and he should have had a touchdown on it too.
Yeah, I agree.
But at the end of the game, when Ben got hurt, had to come out for a series, and I think it was Landry then, his first pass got intercepted. All they had to do was run out the clock. First play was Hill, coming up the middle. Shazier punches it out. Yeah. And that's how the Steelers immediately got the ball back where they should have lost the game. And then they had the two big, the meltdowns and everything happened after that. But to give the Steelers the ball, he was the reason why they were still in that game at the end. And then built on it, being a Pro Bowler the next 2 years, and then ultimately giving his health to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the field of play. To me, I think that says everything, especially since he's been such a big emotional leader for the team, even while he couldn't play, helping out in progression to Devin Bush, helping out the linebacker room. So I'm more of a pro on here, but I know reading my comments that I'm seeing on it, there's a lot of cons.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, Hunter?
It's tough. It's obviously a tough situation because everything we said when we talked about Shazier earlier in this episode still holds true. His inspirational story may never be matched as a Steeler. The side of him that it goes beyond football, as I said earlier, is you can't quantify that really. You can't put a price on that, so to speak. So on one level, Shazier absolutely deserves to have his jersey retired for the strength and the perseverance that he's shown. Yeah. But simply as a player, it obviously doesn't merit that from this organization because, like you said, Lambert doesn't have his number retired, and you can't say that Shazier was even close to the middle linebacker that Jack Lambert was yet. Like we said, Shazier was getting there for sure, was still improving, was still getting there. But if Lambert doesn't have it, if Jack Ham doesn't have it, if Mel Blount doesn't have it, if all of these clear-cut Hall of Fame players don't have it, how can you really sit there and say Shazier deserves to? And the answer to that question is everything that goes beyond football. So if you weigh that stuff enough, nobody's going to complain. There's no Steelers fan or football analyst in general that would say, wow, he definitely didn't deserve that. That would roll their eye. It would be fun. Everybody would be cool with it. It would be awesome. But just for me personally, I think it's a stretch. I think it could become one of those numbers, like you said, that are just kind of off limits and are honored in that way, but not officially retired. That would be cool. Yeah. But I can't quite envision an official retirement for 50.
Yeah, and devil's advocate here too, like what if his injury was worse and he never did walk again? Would that have given the emotional lift and support to being, maybe a player that you'd say, yeah, you retire his number because of what he gave to the team to play in the game of football at such a high level.
Right. But like I said, nobody would complain. He's deserving of it on that level for sure.
Yeah. And it's the second question from Drink Iron City. The officiating will be on a microscope due to the lack of preseason conditioning. Will this be a concern going into the season? And how long will it take for the refs to become football sharp within their calls? And I wrote an article a couple days back on the month of September to be the ugliest football you have ever watched for the month of September. And we as Steeler fans, we're used to the month of September being the feel-out period. double-digit penalties usually for the first 3 weeks. Everybody throwing Tomlin under the bus for not having his team prepared. Offense trying to figure out how to just move the football. But this is the whole league now. There was no preseason games. There was no football between whistles. There was no referees on the field being able to call these games. There was no referees even being able to come into practices because of COVID-19. They've kept everybody separate. So this is going to be the first time referees are on the field with players.
It's crazy.
So I think it's going to be a giant CF, which is fudge for you people that making sure I'm keeping it clean for the kids. But my goodness, like I think that there's going to be, not only is it going to be tough for the offenses to get into rhythm, I think it's going to be tough for referees to get into the rhythm of this, to get used to the speed of play happening that quickly. So you're going to have a lot of missed calls. You're going to have a lot of phantom calls. And hopefully the review team can help us out because we're going to have some crazy stuff, I think, starting off early. So, but that's – I can only hope that it happens as quickly as possible. With everything else, when they have referees rotate out and they have sub-refs come in and they come back, it usually takes 2 to 3 weeks for the refs to get comfortable with the game, just like the Steelers' offense technically too. But that's what I'm seeing about.
I for sure agree with everything you just said. I think the one good thing for Steelers is playing Monday night. We're going to be able to watch enough football to know what to expect by that point, to get a feel for it. Tonight should be a good measuring stick for what the flow of the game will be like. And that's not to say that they're going to be able to fix their issues by Monday night. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying that we should know what to expect where this is concerned by Monday night. And I don't know. There's a part of me that doesn't think it's everything you said absolutely holds water. I see it, like I get it. But there's a part of me that thinks it'll be okay and be somewhat normal because the rules didn't change in the offseason. You know what I mean? It's not like they're working against a bunch of crazy stuff like that. It's going to be a little different, but overall it's the same game. They shouldn't have forgotten how to make calls in this amount of time. So I'm optimistic. We'll say that.
Nice. Elizabeth James Homistek.
No, who could that be?
Who is that?
I have no idea.
She's all over Facebook, so just so know she's doing a great job.
It's probably actually my dad. My mom and dad share an account. I bet it's my dad.
Nice. So mom and dad are up here supporting us here on the podcast. Love seeing you. Thank you very much for the great comments here, and we love reading them as we're going here on the show. Last question here, though. So mom and dad, listen up because this is for Hunter directly.
Whoa.
Drink Iron City likes to know about us as people. We love that. Thank you very much, DIC. And Hunter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself on a personal level? And I'm going to say specifically, I want to know about, like, you play guitar. Like, how did that start? Were you in bands?
For sure. That's awesome. I appreciate the question, Drink Iron City. And hearing your screen name this often just makes me want to drink Iron City. So
I know, right?
your guerrilla marketing tactic is certainly working on me here. But yeah, man. So I started playing guitar when I was 13 or 14, probably. My parents got me this little Epiphone Strat, actually, not a Fender Strat. I never even knew that Epiphone made Strats, but I have one, so they do.
Nice.
And, it's great. So initially, they got it for me when I was probably like 10 or 11. And I messed around on it, but it was just hard. And you're a 10-year-old, you know what I mean? I probably played it for like an hour total. And I was like, oh, I'm not good at this. I don't like it. So put it away. And then one of my best friends, Trent Sowers. So met him when I was like 14, and he had been playing guitar for like a year and a half, maybe at that point. It was good, like very quick learner. You could tell he was just kind of a natural at it.
Yeah.
So he started teaching me some stuff. And as soon as I learned, a couple songs, it was game over. Like I was addicted. Like once you could play something, it just became an obsession.
Yeah.
So all through high school, I was in a band with Trent. We had a little band and had the whole thing. We played some cool shit. We opened for Tommy Two-Tone.
Oh!
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is hilarious because we were like heavy Southern metal, kind of like Blackstone Cherry, Black Label Society. We love Pantera and bands like that. So we were a metal band, or at least very hard rock, like on that cusp of being pure metal.
Yeah.
So for sure, it was a weird combo to be opening for Tommy Two-Tone, but I embraced it for sure. So we had some great times, man. But as it happens, college life, careers, marriage, all these things happen, and just having a band on the side, especially when now we're all, 2.5, 3 hours apart, it's not very feasible. So it was never a career thing for me, but it is still something to this day. I play play a lot of guitar on a weekly basis. If you guys follow my Instagram, Twitter, whatever, you'll see plenty of guitar videos pop out. So yeah,
you're rocking out with some Rage Against the Machine there this week.
Rage Against the Machine, yeah, classic. That was one of the first bands. So that's funny that you mentioned them specifically, because that was one of the first ones that got me into heavy music, heavier stuff, because initially my dad was all Stevie Ray Vaughan, Ted Nugent, more blues leaning.
Yeah.
And for sure, I love that to this day. It's Stevie Ray is one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT, one of the best ever. There's nothing bad you can say about him. I can't play like him at all. It's a style that I can't emulate, that nobody to this day has been able to emulate, even the best blues player.
Yeah.
Like when people try to cover
the guitar sings with him.
It's crazy. Whenever people try to cover Stevie Ray Vaughan, it's like, I can tell you're playing the right stuff. The notes are correct, but it doesn't sound like him. It's missing. The vibrato's a little different. All the phrasing's just a little different. You can't replicate that. So Stevie's still the GOAT, but when Rage came into my life, then it became, okay, this heavy stuff's awesome. Then it was like Metallica, which turned into Mudvayne and Slipknot, which now turns into a lot of the technical death metal that I love today. So
nice.
It's just, we spiraled. We went down the rabbit hole big time, and now it's stuff that my parents can't stand to listen to. So sorry, Dad, I went from Stevie to Black Crown Initiate, but here we are.
I went the opposite way. I was classically trained vocalist, and I toured Europe a couple times with my choruses in high school and college. Learned how to play guitar in college, actually by picking out bass lines for Rage Against the Machine. That's
awesome.
How I started playing, and I taught myself how to play guitar. And then I was in a couple bands, and one of them was signed there around 2000. It was a band called Fat Kid that was pop punk, and I got to do lead vocals and rhythm guitar in that band and had a blast. And then
it's killer.
Now I run a marketing promotions company, so
there it is.
Still write every once in a while and throw stuff up on my
we need to write
page and Facebook page, but right now it's just fun.
Yeah, maybe we need to write like a theme song for the podcast or something.
There we go. Yeah,
I
actually use the one of the Fat Kid songs. If you guys listen to the podcast, it plays in the intro.
Nice.
Song called "Rollin'." And that's a song that we wrote back around 2000, and we were signed to Den Music at the time. And
dude, that's awesome.
We got some nice production on some of the music I got.
Hell yeah. I love that.
So cool. So thanks for sharing, guys. You got to follow Hunter, Twitter, Instagram, Hunter A. Homistek. That's at HunterAHomistek. Hunter and I were going to be here. Set your calendars every Tuesday, 2:00. Following the Mike Tomlin presser, so we can go over all of the information immediately after it happens from the presser. And if you don't like listening to Mike Tomlin say the same thing every week, just listen to us. We'll punch it up a bit and we'll have fun with it. But Hunter, always a blessing to have you. Thanks for being on the show, and man, and I'm super happy to have you all season.
For sure, man. Same here. We're going to have a lot of fun. I hope you guys liked the first show. It's only getting better from here. And the Steelers, it's going to be a fun Steelers season, man. I'm predicting really nice things for them.
Yep. Awesome. See you soon, Hunter. Get to your meeting.
Later, dude. Thanks.
Later, man. Make sure to visit our title sponsor, Total Sports Enterprises, on Twitter. Be part of their signed jersey merch giveaway done every week. And it is at Total Sports Ent. That's at TOTALSPORTSENT. You too can get great, unique gifts on the SteelerNation.com gear page, like the shirt I am currently wearing now. Come on over to the SteelerNation.com gear page. Get dressed up for Steeler Nation because, man, it's happening now. We got to do our tailgates at home, but let's look good doing it. We got some great ones. I got a bunch coming in that I'm going to be wearing across the whole podcast, so I'll be really pointing out some great shirts that we got. So come on over, check out the great designs, and I know you'll love it. SteelerNation.com is the best site for fast, unique Steeler content on the internet. Click the podcast button to listen to one of our many interviews, or click the forum button for the best football discussion on the interwebs. Subscribe to the SteelerNation.com YouTube channel and be the first to know about our live vidcasts and video uploads. Tweet us at SteelerNation, Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the Steeler Nation podcast on Twitter and watch it live as you're doing here at _SN podcast, or follow me, your host with the most, Stryker, on Twitter and Instagram, and it is at SN Stryker. Stryker is spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us for the SteelerNation.com podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, with Hunter Homistek, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!